to another episode of Mental Health Matters from St. Louis Counseling. stlouiscounseling.org spells Saint out, stlouiscounseling.org. So as always, we try to have some entertaining conversation and entertaining guests to help with that conversation as we continue to break down stigma with mental health and just make talking about mental health okay, you know, with a goal of just around any dinner table in the United States, or you know what, international, because we interviewed somebody one time from Canada, so we're like an international podcast, but talking about mental health around the dinner table being okay. And today we have a really special guest. We have, I would call it radio royalty of St. Louis.
I like that.
You like that?
I like that.
So welcome, Staci Static. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
No
Thanks for
problem.
coming on.
I'm never used to being like the subject of an interview, so it's like, okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm being interviewed today.
I know. I was telling someone earlier, I'm like, she's going to end up probably interviewing me.
Right.
And then I can add to her list of all the people
Yeah.
that she's interviewed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, you know, for those that don't know, I mean, what, about 20 years?
20 years in radio locally, which is a feat in itself.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I bet that had to be, I mean, I bet, and you've had some amazing interviews along the way,
I
too.
have.
Is there one interview that really stands out for you over all those years?
One? No.
A bunch.
It's a bunch. I mean, interviewing Puffy and him cursing live on the radio, or when I interviewed him in person and he was like, "Didn't I see you in Miami?" And I'm like, no.
Not so much
but
Miami.
we can make that happen.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just, I interviewed Joe Biden and Michelle Obama, Spike Lee. Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
It's been countless comedians, and I
Yeah.
never got Oprah though.
That's next, right?
That's next.
I'm sure Oprah's listening to this podcast.
Of course.
So then
Hey,
she's going to say, I'll hook
Yeah,
Staci up.
yeah.
Yeah, you have a lot of Twitter I think Barack Obama follows you on
No,
Twitter.
I don't think so.
No? You
Yeah.
don't think so? You
That
sure?
would be nice, but no.
No, not even that,
I think
huh?
Soledad O'Brien followed me one day, and I was like, wow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you
so that
go.
was a pretty good one.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like some random people will follow me, and I'm just like, okay, I don't
Yeah.
even know how you found out about me, but hey,
But yeah.
hey girl, hey.
Yeah, you got the following, right?
Yeah.
So 20 years. Now what are you up to? What are you up to?
Starting my podcast, where we are now on April 1st. I'll be doing a 1-hour daily podcast.
That's going to be awesome.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we're here at the Mid-Coast Media
Offices.
studios, offices. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people looking forward to that in the region to hear you again going at it with stuff.
On a daily basis, they'll be able to find me. And I'll be tackling some things. I do always want to have fun. Like, I just think that lessons can be learned through having fun all the time. So
Amen
even
to
though I
that.
will tackle issues, I always still like to envelope it in fun because I come from entertainment. I can't stop that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was kind of excited to have you on today when we talk about mental health. Mental Health Matters. You know, so the podcast, get that podcast name, Mental Health Matters, like subjects.
Yeah.
And Mental Health Matters. You
it
know.
does.
And so just kind of having some conversation, and you know, we all have our own baseline of mental health, you know, and some days it's up, some days it's down. Some people deal with a mental illness, but a lot of times, you know, our daily grind and daily stressors of what we do and who we are plays a factor in that. So, you know, being 20 years in radio, which is, I mean, I could be wrong, but it's probably pretty heavily male dominated.
Oh, yeah.
And for a female to come from where you've come from, I mean, I'm sure you've had to deal with stress over
Yeah,
that time.
I've had some battle wounds for sure. And I had different coping mechanism along the way. Like I told you off air, that I've gone through therapy or some counseling through most of my life, having anger management issues as a young child, and through not so much as a teenager, but in my young adult years, then going back and finding a therapist to deal with the dissolution of my relationship with my first daughter's father, just knowing that, recognizing the signs, like I know I need to go talk to someone because I'm getting out of control or my life is spiraling, and I know that I need to ring it in. Like, so I've been able to recognize when I need some help.
Recognize those signs and symptoms, which is so important to be proactive. So, you know, being an African-American female and we know sometimes culture plays a part in all, we all have our own family culture. We have the culture of our family origins. We have community culture. We have all those things, neighborhood culture. So, how do you perceive in an African American culture that counseling is looked at?
I think overall there's still a stigma attached, and even though I've been through therapy, I still frown upon taking medication for certain things, because I feel like there's always a natural remedy. But I think that sometimes taking medication can get you over a hump so you can get through therapy and start to make changes in your life. I think you need to be proactive. But I think overall there is still a stigma attached, and I think it's unfortunate because we're quick to heal our bodies physically. But when we're sick in our mind, and that's to say you're sick, but when you're not feeling your best self, it's okay to reach out and get help from a professional to just help you navigate through that. And I think a lot of times we try to pray it away because we're so deep into the church, or we don't want to admit that there may be a problem. And I think that's just unfortunate. Yeah,
we had a podcast a couple weeks ago, and we had Travis Terrell on from We Are Live Radio.
You're right.
They've instructed me to always say that every podcast. I don't know why. No, I'm kidding.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plugs. But he was talking about that too, about praying it away.
Oh yeah.
And so I grew up. My mom's straight from Ireland, straight up Irish Catholic, and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You don't tell anybody your problems.
Exactly.
You keep it inside and inside the family. And he was talking about that too. And he goes, it's so strong in the African American culture too, about keeping it at that church level, that spiritual level. And it's like you just can't do that all the time. So sometimes the sign, right, is like, hey, go get help, And so, praying is great, and the spiritual side is great, but it's also figuring out when it's time to go seek somebody
You're
out.
not about to tell Pastor to heal your cancer. So I don't know what makes you think Pastor can heal your anxiety and your depression. He's not going to be able to do it. And like I said, you seek out professional help for people who actually do this. And it's like there are clinical signs and situations that require a clinical method to attack it. And I think that we need to just be honest about that, and we need to be okay with it, and we need to encourage each other to seek the help, and far too many of us don't.
So, it's Women's Empowerment Month as well, too. Last month was February.
What was that? Black History Month.
Black History Month. So,
wait.
Yeah, well, so, one of the things, we are trying to, at St. Louis Counseling, as well as, if you're a good clinician, social worker, trying to just create avenues of social justice, racial equity, and some of those things, they're not buzzwords, but they become buzzwords because they're already there, and you got some people already trying to do that stuff, but then all of a sudden, society is like, hey, let's use all these terms, like the word intentional. Like, I like the word intentional.
I do too.
But then now it's like everyone's using it, so now I don't like using it, but I can't think of another word. But
just take it back.
Yeah, just take it back. But so you're kind of a great guest to have on when we talk about women empowerment too, because I think for you to get where you have gotten to in life, that's hard. And this is, of course, a white guy saying this to you, a male, right? But the reality is, I can't ever put myself in the shoes of you, right? And what you've probably had to walk through to get to where you are, especially in a male-dominated world.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think that I had a strong foundation. I was always very close to the males in my family. Close to the women too, but definitely the males. I always navigated towards my older brother and my father. I spent a lot of time with them. And they definitely taught me that there was nothing I couldn't do. So I've always attacked things from, well, if plan A doesn't work, then I have a plan B, C, and D already lined up. So I'm never failing. So it was even that, like that in radio. Like I was going for a radio job at the same time a male friend of mine was going for a radio job, and he got the job before I did. He didn't even stay in radio. He did it a couple of years to decide he didn't want to do it.
Wow.
So I had to wait my turn. And it wasn't until another female came to the market who was in a management position who hired me without even seeing me because of the way I sound. She didn't even know I was attractive. So She heard my air check and she hired me, and that's how I got in. Where the gentleman who met him saw him in person, and he and I the same day, and hired him because I wasn't attractive enough to him, or I wasn't what appealed to him. It didn't matter what I looked like, and I had a very long career in that situation. So I've always had to deal with that male ego, that male presence in radio, even from the very beginning. I mean, but that's not to say the first time I was given a chance on radio was from a man who, you know, just appreciated the fact that I was good and I knew
had talent.
Yeah, that I had talent. So it's a man who gave me an opportunity, and it was a man who didn't. So it was always, you know, I just dealt with it. I just, you know, whatever. I roll with the punches. It's like, I'm not going to give up. You're not going to shoot out my dream. I'll just figure out another way.
Just keep figuring out a way. Did you always want to be in radio?
No.
Really? And you're from St. Louis, right?
I am from St. Louis. My whole life, I wanted to be a singer.
Can you sing?
They say I can. Some people still know me as a singer. I still get friends from my youth and young adult life, and they're just like, when are you gonna start singing again? I'm like, I think that ship has sailed. But no, I wanted to sing. I just knew I wanted to work in music. I knew that entertainment was something I wanted to do. So I just kind of gravitated to that. Somebody said, I think you have a talent for this, and I was like, I'll pursue that then. I mean, but when I got a job full-time in radio, I was working full-time at the housing authority, putting people in Section 8 housing.
Really?
Because I was a single mom. I had to make money. I needed insurance. So, yeah, that's what I was doing. And then the opportunity came for me to work full-time in radio, and I took it.
Wow. Yeah, so not only, let's see, single mom, working a couple jobs.
Yeah,
you dealt with some stress. Going to school, you dealt with a little stress over the years, right?
That's why I hear young people, I'm like, girl, please. Whatever.
Wow.
Sacrifice. It takes sacrifice. You got to work. I mean, at the end of the day, no, you have to outwork everybody.
Yeah, and like you said, even sometimes when we're kind of talking about women empowerment here, you're already at a deficit, right? You're already at a deficit just to start out.
Yeah.
And so you got to climb through that after that.
Yeah.
You know?
Being black, being a single mom, I had so many stigmas attached to just me as a person and all the baggage that I was bringing to the table. It was like, I cannot not do well. I cannot prove everybody wrong. I just can't do it. I have to be the best. And that's how I just got through life. And I think, like we were talking off the air, not having a traditional job for the last few months, leading up to that point, I knew that it was time to do something else. And that's when I was like, and I was angry all the time, and I sought therapy. I went and I sat down and talked to somebody. And throughout, like I said, throughout my life, I've recognized when I'm out of control, I'm just too angry, I'm snapping at my kids, and I know that's not right. They shouldn't have to live like that, and the people around me shouldn't have to live like that. And so when I see that I'm getting out of control, I take a step back and I find somebody to talk to.
So what kind of, for you, I mean, what kind of therapist do you like? Like when you're sitting in there with them, I mean, what do you want from the therapist?
I'm definitely a person who leans more towards cognitive therapy because I feel like the power is within us to get through the things that we need to get through. It's about controlling your thoughts and controlling your mind. That's always been, because that's how sometimes I just get away from it, but that's how I've been able to get through things in life, period. You know, and sometimes people will say, well, maybe you're a little numb to the seriousness of what may have happened to you. But it's just like, in order to keep moving and in order to keep growing and working, you have to control your mind and not become a victim. You know, it's like you have to get that strength up. And sometimes it can get a little weak and you'll need help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for it. So, I mean, I'm definitely into cognitive therapy.
Awesome. So for people that might be listening and they've never been in therapy before, right? So that concept of going in the office and just telling someone your thoughts. How's that work for you? How is it like some of the first times you're going in there, was it really like, okay, what am I supposed to do?
Well, what you also need to realize is that not all therapists are the same. I've had some uncomfortable situations where I was just like, I don't feel comfortable talking to this person. I had a guy who somebody recommended him to me, and he was basically trying to tell me what was wrong with me before I even had an opportunity to speak. That was my first and last time talking to him. I didn't feel comfortable. And not all the time do you always need to seek out a therapist that looks like you. It would help. I think that as an African American, we do feel more comfortable speaking to someone who can understand, you know, basically like the way we may have grown up. Like you may not have dealt with being whooped as a child, or you know what I'm saying. You know, some like, and it's just like we don't want to be told that our parents were shitty. Can I curse? Because
Were you puff? Were you puff daddy?
Because they whooped us, because that's how we grew up. And it's just like, even though now it's such a stigma attached to that, it's just like, don't tell me my whole upbringing was, you know, I'm just a victim now. It's just like deal with me, come to me where I am, meet me where I am, and let's go from there. And don't try to tell me my whole life was just a tragedy.
Because it wasn't.
That I had to deal with corporal punishment. It's just like, no, that's just how we are, and it might not be right now, but we live and we learn, and let's go forward.
No, that's such a great point, because I think a lot of people get turned off of therapy because they pick someone, or someone says you'd be a good match with this person, and then you just don't mix with them. And so it's like there's so many different therapists out there, and that, to me, you know, relationship is the key to everything in the world. You know, I kind of think it's all about relationships. And so if you connect to that therapist, that's the best predictor of success.
Yeah, and if you feel uncomfortable, it's okay. You can walk with, you're paying them.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
okay to walk away and find someone else. I mean, I think that's we go to one person and we think, oh, this is it. Okay, no, there are hundreds of therapists that are available to you, different ages, different sexes, different races. Like, find the person that fits with you, that you can feel comfortable talking to, and figure it out, and be okay with that.
I once, when I was working with kids younger in my career, this one kid was moving from the facility he was staying at to a different town, and so we had to find a new therapist. We found this therapist, you know, didn't know much about him. It was a small town. Went down there for this transition session, walked into this therapist's office, and everything was Star Trek. Like, we're talking like everything on the wall. And then he even did that thing with his fingers when he said hello, you know. And the kid is looking at me. He's like an 18-year-old kid from an inner city.
He's like, I'm not about to deal with this.
He's like, don't let me come in here. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable too. I don't even like Star Trek, but this makes me really uncomfortable. But there's definitely, you know, it's okay just to walk away.
It's okay.
Yeah, and definitely, like a good listener, you're looking for someone that's going to listen, and as you said too, not tell you what to think, how to think. It's about that journey, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
about that journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you see for yourself for the future, Staci Static?
Mentally? In what regards? I just want to continue to be happy. I think that because so long I've had to share myself in a way with the public, I think I forgot who I was. So I've been taking on new hobbies and discovering things about myself that I hadn't in the past. Like, I love to dance. And I spent
dancing and singing. Okay.
Well, I didn't like to dance at first because I always mentally told myself I couldn't. So recently I started like going to like African dance parties and listening to reggae, and I feel comfortable dancing to that music, even though I worked in hip hop clubs for umpteen years, and I would never dance. But now I feel free enough to dance and enjoy myself. So more dancing for sure.
You know, that had to be, like, you know, you mentioned kind of being in the public light and then having to just kind of have a persona, right? Having an image, probably, you know, especially nowadays with Twitter and social media and everything. It definitely changed. Everything you do can be recorded, that had to be stressful.
Very stressful. You never know. And just still not knowing, just when you work in a club environment and people want to be close to you, or people feel like, I remember a therapist telling me, because I was telling her that I feel really uncomfortable when men just come up and touch me. Anybody would just come up and touch me. Like, they feel like they have the right to just touch me in intimate places on my body, like putting their hand on the small of my back, and I don't know them. Wow. And she was like, you don't owe that to them. And I would always try to be nice to people because I felt like these are listeners, you know, I don't want to offend them and lose a listener. She was like, no, they don't get the right. They don't have the right to touch you and make you feel uncomfortable. And just when I took control of that part of my life, just the people's like their reaction to it. I remember I told this guy, like, I was just like, say what you, like, I would literally remove their hand from me. And I would, you can say whatever you want to me, just don't touch me. Just how offended they would get from me taking control over my own body. Yeah, being a woman and having to deal with that. And I'm like, I don't think, or even having a boss try to tickle me one time.
Tickle you?
Tickle me. And I said, no, you can't tickle me. And he was just like, I can't tickle. Offended, once again, like offended. And I was just like, and I told him, I said, I don't see you trying to tickle Ted, which was my coworker. Try to tickle him. Why do you think you can tickle me?
Exactly.
So yeah, these are the kinds of things. And I'm just like, and I had to learn to push people off of me and say, no, thank you.
That boundary, creating that boundary.
Yeah, but for so long, as a woman, I think that we're always taught to be nice and gentle with people. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I will take control over my body. This is my body, and you don't get to tell me how it should be treated. You know,
and I think just in some, you know, I look at the year, right? It's 2019, and we still have all that going on. You know, and sometimes it's like male, female, we can't get right.
Right.
You know, and then we're like trying to figure out all the cultural piece as well, too. But male, female, there's still just that world of just exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Guys thinking they're entitled, you know.
Entitled, like he was just like, oh, St. Louis women are mean. And I'm just like, this has nothing to do with me being from St. Louis. Like,
no, this is my body, and I don't really want you touching me.
And I don't know you.
Yeah.
Like, move.
Yeah, get out of my way.
Yeah.
So, do you think with, what do you think of Me Too?
I think as women, we need to decide what it is that we're fighting for. I think that the message is all over the place a little bit for me. I had a conversation with women, and they all agreed that we're not on the same page with it. And it was like 6 other women. I was a part of a panel discussion, and I was moderating. And I said, "Do you all think that we're on the same page with this?" And everyone was resounding, "No, we're not. We need to get the message together and figure out exactly what we're asking for and how we're asking for it, and are these the right methods?"
Yeah. So the overall theme, right? Yeah. Exactly. We got to stop the abuse. We got to stop just the level of boundaries that are out there that are being broken on a daily basis. But be able to centralize around some common themes with it. Some common
and it's like
goals.
Because we are still ruining other people's lives, even if they have been out of pocket. But I think that a lot of it is, like you said, cultural. I think that for far too long, things have gone on for so long, people didn't know they were in the wrong. And it's okay to tell them that they're in the wrong. And if they continue to be offenders, I mean, obviously, it's some things where you feel like they should have known that they were.
Yeah, you would think so. Like tickling somebody, you know, tickling.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, but he was truly like, you won't let me tickle you?
Yeah, why?
And I'm like, and then I don't think that he really got it until I said, I don't see you trying to tickle the guy.
Yeah. He goes, well, that'd be wrong. You know, exactly.
He couldn't even offend himself. Like, he was just like, oh, I didn't try to tickle him. Duh.
Boy, it makes me proud to be a male sometimes.
You didn't try to tickle somebody. Good for you, Tom. Yeah, some people are, you know, some men are just like, I know better. Yes, you do know better because you know how you don't want to be treated.
Yeah.
I think that attractive males may have a better understanding of that because maybe
such as myself.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there you go.
Because they probably have had to deal with unwanted advances from women in a way that they didn't expect. Like, it's just like, whoa, what are you doing? I think that they may be a little bit more
be able to put themselves in the shoes.
Of somebody. Just, you know, just somebody who like, oh, well, maybe that is not okay.
Or you think about, you know, a daughter, a mom, you know, would you want someone tickling your mom? You know, no. You know?
Some people don't care though.
Yeah.
Some people don't get it. They think that women, I think there's just, and then there's also the thing about women want to be seen equally, but it's like it's some things we can't do physically. It's like it's a catch-22. Like I don't know. Like I said, I definitely understand because I've worked in a male dominated industry. I've been in male dominated situations and felt uncomfortable, obviously. But I also think that there needs to be some, how does my daughter put it? She says it all the time too. She's like, I believe that there should be gender roles. And she's young, she's 25. And she's like, I believe in gender roles. And I'm like, well, maybe she's onto something. I think that it's just, that's what I'm saying. We need to come together and figure this thing out because I think it's all over the place. It's like, do we really want our men to be house husbands? Do we really want to be the main breadwinner? You know, I think that there are some women that are just like, no, I want to be a housewife. And no, the man should be the breadwinner. And then there are some women that are just like, no, I can make more money than my man and he can stay home. It's like everybody has their own thing going on. It's just like no message is clear.
Yeah, what's the clear message, you know? But, you know, and maybe it comes back to respect, you know?
That's it.
Whatever this family or this person thinks, you got to respect the boundary,
Exactly.
right? And then just keep your hands to yourself.
And I think with work issues, I think it's clearer when you're dealing with work issues, when you're dealing with professional situations. I think that if we muddy the waters when we deal in dating, in the dating life, I think it's easier to come up with a solution in the workplace than it is in the dating life. Because I hear a lot of men say, you can't even compliment a woman no more. You know, and I'm just like, no.
You're not saying that.
That's not what we're saying. But I think at work, I should have never had to tell my boss, you can't tickle me.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That if I'm at the club, then I might have to tell a man, don't touch me.
Exactly.
Even though you
should know better.
But we're drinking and we might be dancing and getting flirty or whatever. But I think at work, those lines should not be crossed. And it's easier to navigate it in the workplace.
So it comes back to workplaces developing the procedures and then having the accountability.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to dealing with race, and so this is my white guy asking question side, right?
Okay.
Because I like to ask questions. So when we look at that mental health component, right? So, you know, up and down, stress, you know, toxic stress, living in an environment of stuff every single day, and it can affect just the way we think and moderate. I guess throughout life, right, being African American, just the stress of that. And I think sometimes people have, you know, you hear different sides. You know, when you hear a mom saying like, you know, I tell my son every day, if you get pulled over, follow the rules.
Well, I can speak from a black woman's standpoint. Me and my friend, we're both single moms, and she's an entrepreneur, and I'm entering into the entrepreneurial part of my life. And we just talk about, just the sheer numbers of it all. Black women in this country outnumber our men by the age of 16. White women outnumber their men by the age of 30. So our prospects to get married start to dry up very early on. So that means that we're going to be raising our children alone or not having a two-income household, the stresses that come with that. Even though I have amazing parenting partners that are very active in their children's lives and financially responsible, but still the day-to-day is on me just having to deal with that level of stress. And I think that white women don't have that level of stress that black women have. Just right off the bat. Right out the bat. We're behind the eight ball. And when you talk about housing and when you talk about education and when you talk about the criminal justice system, I think that all of those things, and I always say those are the three things that if we could solve the problems in those three areas, then we're all on an even playing field. I think that alone, just knowing that a lot of us are by ourselves and not protected or don't have the help and the support system that we need in order for our children, in order for us to just have that kind of help. I think that's where the stress comes.
Yeah, yeah. So just those thoughts, right? Just even thinking about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because you read studies and stuff like that. The difference between female brain, male brain. Now the female brain is constantly churning on those things, constantly thinking about those things. So right off the bat, it's like you may not even be dealing with one of those issues at that moment, but it's still in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the stuff when you look at, toxic stress, right? So that definition, toxic stress is living in that environment day in and day out, and just the toll that it takes on you. So, and I think sometimes when you hear, people going back and forth, both sides, with race, white, black, or any side, right?
Right.
People don't understand that side of it.
Yeah, it's just
and what's
like
going through your head.
we don't have my parents have not been able to just ball out when I had kids, like go out and get 2 sets of strollers and car seats for the baby. And that's not a reality for a lot of us. Like, we just don't have it like that. We just don't have that accumulation of wealth in our communities where, the mom can just come stay with the kid and keep the grandbaby for 6 months while mom and dad go back to work and get their lives back together. I mean, some of us have that, obviously, but a lot of us don't. A lot of us, we bring kids into the world and we got to go right back to work, and who's going to watch our kids, and that's a stress. I mean, it's always, or we just like, they just had the scandal with the college entry.
Yeah.
And everybody on social media was like, what about those black women who lied about their address to get their kids into better schools that actually got jail time for this?
Arrested
and
in
it's
jail.
and it's just like, those are the kind of things that we have to deal with. We're not even trying to get them into elite schools. We just want them to go to a school that they're going to actually learn and have books and extracurricular activities that's accredited. Just things like that. I mean, those are the kind of stresses that we have to deal with. And the more that I think that if people just realize we're all just people and we all just want the best things for our children, and we all just want a safe place to live. Like, all of us want the exact same thing. And it's just like, people like what do you think? It's like, those are things that we wake up to in the middle of the night. It's just like, how am I going to get this done?
Exactly. Yeah. And I was having that conversation with somebody earlier today, and just talking about, we are all humans.
Yeah.
And we all want some basic things.
That's it.
And when we deal with politics and all these other things, and the left and the right and the differences, but ultimately, what are we? Humans.
People. That's it.
Yep. Oh, now I want to change the world again. Are you with me on that? You with me to change the world?
Let's go.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know. We're one thing at a time now.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur at changing the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to prioritize this. Me first.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes me first. And that's the other thing, is if we can just work on ourselves, and that comes back to, like you said earlier, is recognizing who you are, and when you're up, you're up. When you're down. If you need to get some help, you go get some help.
Yeah. It's just that simple.
And community. I think that's the other side, is sometimes if you don't understand, if you forget where you came from, you forget what the whole thing is all about, like being human, just looking out for one another, helping yourself, but then also remembering where you came from and helping out each other. That's where you lose it.
Like they say, check on your strong friends.
Yeah. Very true.
Get a lot of that. Check
Very
on
true.
your friends that always seem like they have it all together. Check on them. And I think in the past few months, a lot of my friends have checked on me, and I appreciate that, because I went through it a little bit, but yeah, I'm coming back around. It's been a full year of me going through it.
See, we always just figure out who we are, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the thing. So, well, this is this has been awesome having you on, and kind of talking. We had a lot of topics today.
Yeah, we did.
We had a lot of topics. So hopefully we'll have you on again in the near future.
Well, I'm down. I'm down.
Be one of our cool returning guests.
Yeah, we can talk about mental health and why it matters, especially for Black women. We go through it, and I'm glad that you recognize that we do. It's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think I will say this. Women of color are we are leading the way as far as getting our self-help together. I think that we're trying to get Black men on board with it, but I think that Black women are slowly but surely becoming more open to getting some sort of mental health together, because we realize we have to be there for our children. If we're not, nobody else will be. So I think I definitely see more of us like gravitating to it.
So that kind of empowerment movement.
Yeah.
Women
leaders.
of color with mental health. Oh, I'm seeing the whole campaign
look
coming
at
on,
you.
and I'm seeing you as the face.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, I'm down. Let's do numbers.
Well,
No,
you
I'm
can
just
sing,
kidding.
you can dance. Yeah. Did I mention we're a nonprofit? Yeah. Anyway.
Well, it won't be that much money, I guess.
Maybe lunch. Yeah. No. Well, awesome. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
We look forward to having you on again and having some more exploration of a lot of different topics.
Okay.
You've been listening to Mental Health Matters with St. Louis Counseling. This is Tom Duff, and I am signing off today. We will see you next week.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.